subscribe and, like the video. China also, as a foreign adversary outside of the American sphere of influence, is aligned with Russia. But China doesn't have the same level of influence over Russia that America has over Ukraine. You heard all of the words come out of my mouth. I'm not saying China is moral. So Palestine isn't moral? No nation is moral. Palestine also doesn't even exist. What are you talking about? Movements can be morally correct. Movements, emancipatory movements under the grips of settler colonialism will be morally righteous. But nation states that are developed do not operate on the boundaries of morality. They just don't. And I'm not saying that like China's push for a ceasefire comes from a place where they're just like, oh, we love doing peace. It's just beneficial for them. It's beneficial for them when Russia undermines American hegemony. And it's also beneficial for them when, when this war inevitably ends, so that they're not, so that energy prices can stabilize. Now you're going to get canceled by pro-Palestine content creators? What? No, I'm not. Do you want to clarify the Palestine doesn't exist comment? I get exactly what you mean, but for the inevitable bad faith clip chimps out there, I think everybody understands what I mean when I say that. Palestine as a nation state is not recognized by the international community. Okay? How is forgiving debt not moral? No. There is no underlying interest in doing moral good for a nation. Chinese debt forgiveness is a great example of this. It's not done because China's like, oh, we really want to be good to these countries. It's done because they want the support of said countries on the global stage. The loan conditions are better because they're more competitive in comparison and significantly better than the Western loans. Why did you bring up China? Nobody brought up China. We're talking about other power players, and I didn't bring up China. This guy did.
Robin.
All right, Ian, are they
their support for each other, but in
Ukraine with Congress.
Well, President Xi Jinping of China, Vladimir Putin, talking on the phone this morning, reaffirming their support.
You got it? Was that helpful for you? Do I have to walk everybody every step of the way through every conversation? I mean, I'll do it. This is my job to a certain degree, so I'll do it,
Is France going to lift the block?
No, in fact, to be frank, we paid. Macron corrects Trump after he claims Europe loaned Ukraine.
because he's not, look, if we do this deal, he's not looking for more war. He doesn't mind, but I've specifically asked him that question. He has no problem with it.
Is France going to lift the block on the $300 billion in frozen Russian assets in Belgium? France has opposed unfreezing it to pay Ukraine and compensate the U.S. for its support. Is France going to lift its opposition to that?
This is, we speak about frozen assets. We already used them to back precisely the loans negotiated at the G7. And it's part of the sanctions, so it will depend on the follow-up of the discussions. But clearly, we respect international law. It's just frozen assets now. You can take the proceeds of the frozen assets, but you cannot take the assets themselves because it's not respecting international law, and we want to respect international law.
This stuff is so funny because it's just what we say goes, right? That's it. There's a president blaming Ukraine for the invasion and chatters are still chirping at you. Yup. You must understand, Donald Trump is not an accessible figure. I am. That's it. Chatters are not yelling about politics. They're just trying to do drama so it's so that politics is easier to consume.
How is one different than the other? If you can take the proceeds from it, how can you not take
Because
them?
it's very different. You keep the assets, you take the proceeds because they are paralyzed in a certain way. You take the proceeds during the wartime, but you keep the assets, and it's part of the negotiation at the end of the war. Because, this war costed all of us a lot of money. And this is the responsibility of Russia, because the aggressor is Russia.
Should the US be compensated?
So at the end of the day, this frozen asset should be part of the negotiation, all in all.
Will France support the U.S. being compensated?
I support the idea to have Ukraine first being compensated because they are the one to have lose a lot of their fellow citizens and being destroyed by these attacks. Second, all of those.
It's crazy that even this douchebag is correct on this, by the way. Like even this charlatan, even this douchebag, I hate Macron, next to an animal like Donald Trump comes across like a beacon of elder statesmanhood. Yeah, of course Ukraine should get reparations. Like Ukraine should get financial restitution. And all we're offering is the exact opposite, which is, no, we're going to you further. We're just gonna take all of your natural resources. It is crazy. Why do you hate Macron? Oh my God, dude. Where do I begin? Macron is the annoying right-wing neoliberal that has utilized the wave of fascist mobilization in his own country to try and do more austerity and create more of a momentum against himself, and then actually lose his grip of power by calling together an election and then not abiding by the French precedent set in previous elections and offered that coalition the leadership that they wanted because of his awesome powers that he has in his position, refusing to do that, and then putting whatever prime minister he decides is the appropriate prime minister in charge. The second prime minister that's in charge currently is also under a assault controversy as well. There's like there's some kind of like Catholic Church rape coverage that the prime minister engaged in, from what I understand. But that's not even the biggest problem. I can't believe I'm saying that. Assault cover-up is not the biggest problem. It's ridiculous, but that is just the state of affairs in Western politics nowadays. This is not even a post-Trump universe. Yeah, he stopped the popular left-wing majority from picking a prime minister, even when that like popular mobilization offered a social democrat. It wasn't going to be Mélenchon, but he still refused. He covered 100 plus child raised by a school which he was a board member of. Yeah, it's insane. Also, he's a massive Islamophobe and has aggressively pursued, like he's done the thing where he has outflanked the nationalists on reactionary policies while also simultaneously still implementing neoliberal austerity measures, like increasing, against the public's wishes, increasing the retirement age for everybody except for cops, from what I understand. I wonder why he won't do it for the cops. Oh, just horrible, dude. Horrible monster. He sucks. French guy here, there's a second abuse scandal being investigated that Prime Minister covered up, apparently. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Are we really ignoring why he used to be a socialist? Are we really ignoring why he was forced to do that, though? Go ahead. Tell me why he was forced to do that. Dude, if the French social safety nets collapse, okay, you won't need a Vichy France. It'll just develop on its own. Okay, wait for the nationalists to take over at that point. Like, what good is France if not for expansive social safety nets? That's the one thing France has. That and decent cuisine. What are we doing here? No, I meant the immigration part. Okay, go ahead. Why was he forced to do that? They have escargot. It's not decent. It's fine. Escargot is still edible, which is, I think, a testament to how good French cuisine is, because they just spam garlic and butter. It's OP. They'll make you eat a bug. They'll make you eat a slimy ass bug with that. This is like the dozenth political party you've talked about today that bended the knee to fascism. What the hell? Yep.
Who paid for could be compensated, but not by Ukraine, by Russia, because they was the one to aggress.
Again, just so you understand, Europe is loaning the money to Ukraine. They get their money back.
No, in fact, to be frank.
Damn, he's touching him. Trump did not like that. That's why, oh my God, is that why Trump was like, tell the UN envoy, we're voting pro-Russia? God damn, I didn't see this. This is, everyone's gonna love this shit, dude. They're gonna nut so hard. Ugh, I hate Macron, but he went real French with it, dude. Yeah. And that moment, new axis of evil formed. Dark Soul style opens up a new screen, axis of evil formed. Do you think Putin is manipulating Trump, or do you think Trump is forming his own vested interest in siding with Russia? Both. I think that Donald Trump and the new fascist right-wing attitude towards Russia is that Russia could be an ally against China, I think. So I think that is part of the process, but also I think Trump is being manipulated by Vladimir Putin because he loves authoritarian strongmen that are nice to him, and I think Putin just glazes him, so he likes Putin. He likes authoritarian strongmen in general. He hates Zelensky, he likes Putin, and also it's in their immediate interest.
We paid 60% of the total effort, and it was through, like the US, loans, guarantee, grants, and we provided real money, to be clear.
Yes.
We have 230 billion frozen assets in Europe, Russian assets, but this is not as a collateral of a loan because this is not our belonging. So they are frozen. If at the end of the day in the negotiation we will have with Russia, they're ready to give it to us, super. It will be loan at the end of the day and Russia will have paid for that.
If you
This is my
believe
wish.
that, it's okay with me.
Mr. President. If you believe that, it's okay with me.
Again, just so you understand.
3.6 million. Macron destroyed his lives. Trump thought he was at a MAGA event. I like that liberals are also doing this thing where they're like, the majority of the money the U.S. granted Ukraine goes here. We sent our old stuff. Now it's being replaced with new and advanced equipment. Why is the hollowness of your morals somehow being seen as a benefit? Like, how is this any different than Trump being like, yeah, of course we're going to take your natural resources. We gave you weapons. Shut the f up. Like, liberals, are you a defense contractor? Like, why are you saying this? Why are you saying this as a positive? It's so crazy because, like, when I say this, people yell at me and say I'm pro-Putin. They're like, oh, Hasan, you're pro-Putin for saying this. When I'm like, this is a scheme. This is a scheme, okay? It's a proxy war and a scheme. Liberals say it as a flex. What does she mean? I mean, she's correct, okay? Ukrainian appropriations from the United States of America come from old equipment that we're just dumping off over there. And it's great because the military-industrial complex can then turn around and be like, one, we just gave all of our old equipment and we have to rebuild. Now we have to rebuild our arsenal. So they get more money in return from the federal government. You can flex your appeal, but not morals. Flex your own morals if they are better. What? I don't know what you're talking about, but thank you for saying I'm flexing my appeal. Thank you for saying I have appeal. Yeah. They're saying it to soften the right-wing perception that Ukraine is being sent cash. It's an appeal, not a flex. No, it's not an appeal because it might be intended as an appeal, but you're basically admitting the reality. None of this also helps American citizens regardless. Okay? Okay, $724 million worth of older equipment was sent to Ukraine. Now there's a $724 million need from the military-industrial complex here, defense contractors here, that are going to turn around and say, okay, can you please give us more money so we can rebuild our arsenal? Did that help you? No. You want to know why it doesn't help you? Because there's no labor unions anyway. So military Keynesianism doesn't even actually operate in the way that it's supposed to because none of that wealth, none of that money even goes back to the working class in general. Okay? And this is before we consider whether or not this is appropriate. If this is the only standing industry in the United States of America, that like all of our manufacturing is geared towards a permanent war economy, what does that say about our foreign policy? Hypocrisy baiting also doesn't matter because Republicans don't care. They're shameless. And I don't think liberals care either. I don't think anybody cares about hypocrisy. They only care about it when they can just like wield it as a weapon against their interlocutors. That's it. Anyway, U.S.-Ukraine Minerals Agreement states that the U.S. would express its desire to keep Ukraine free, sovereign, and secure, according to a draft obtained by Axios. Yeah, if they have a financial imperative, then they'll actually be more invested in the permanent security of Ukraine. How is this anything but extortion, dude? That's it. Yeah, we got to extract your natural resources for a tidy profit, and only then will we actually give you security assurances. It's so oh, God, it is so messed up. And of course, then we arrive at Donald Trump saying in the Oval Office when asked about why the U.S. joined Russia to voting against a UN resolution condemning Russia's war against Ukraine. I don't want to explain it, but it's sort of self-evident, I think. That is crazy. The reason why this is crazy is because Trump doesn't need to do all of this. You're America. You can just like quietly tell Zelensky, like, here's what's what. Okay? It's not like he can't play ball. But instead of doing that in the same way that like Biden was or previous administrations would have done and did do in terms of dealing with Ukraine, he's just out there taking the opposite stance, which is insane. It quite literally undermines any remaining soft power capabilities that America has when Donald Trump comes out and is like, oh yeah, you took a gamble and you thought we would defend you permanently. Well, guess
As
what?
Trump's
Okay, guess what? We're not. We're going to f you over at the end, very openly. They're treating Ukraine as a nation state as though they are like a group of Kurdish militias in the region to be used against whatever regional actor America wants to destabilize. It's crazy. Only until their use is over, and then they turn around and they discard them.
sends more signals he's losing patience with Ukraine and President Zelensky, his administration. And
When will Israel stop condemning Russia? My friend, Israel also stopped condemning Russia as of today, when America stopped condemning Russia. Israel also voted no alongside Belarus and the United States of America and a couple other places. China even abstained. Okay? Think about that.
a proposed UN resolution
Yeah. Ryan Ruth is in shambles, dude. His worst nightmare. His worst nightmare is happening right now in broad daylight.
is refraining from condemning or even acknowledging Russia as the aggressor in this conflict or expressing belief in Ukraine's territorial integrity. President Trump has elevated his longtime close personal friend Steve Witkoff to the center of some of his biggest global challenges. Witkoff has been a central negotiator with Russia. He met directly with Vladimir Putin. And just before Trump took office, Witkoff negotiated the Israel-Hamas ceasefire and is currently working on phase 2. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff joins us now. The White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told reporters
Steve Goatkoff, my king, my goat. W stands for Witkoff, baby. Let's go. Mr. Golf himself, dude.
yesterday that President Trump feels, quote, very strongly that Russia is willing to make a deal, unquote, and that he's, quote, very confident we can get it done this week, unquote. Is that true? Are you that close to a deal with Russia and Ukraine to end the war completely?
Well, I would say, Jake, just first generally that you're seeing a lot of movement in Ukraine, in the Middle East, and I think it's in large part because people are responsive to President Trump. So, and that's fundamental. I think it's guiding almost all negotiations out there in these sectors. So it's a big data point. Second data point is the way Mark Fogel came out. President Putin, and I commend him for it, it was a little bit squirrely, you know, on that day that Mark came out. Certain things needed to be done, and President Putin was very, very flexible in his thinking, released him, and I think it was a huge signal to President Trump that he wants to get a deal done. Our conversations in Saudi Arabia with the Secretary of State and with the National Security Advisor were, in my view, positive, constructive, and clearly momentum building. So I would say that I'm optimistic and positive, just as the president is, that we can get something done rather quickly.
I think everybody watching can understand the need for diplomacy, and especially President Trump wanting to reset the relationship with Russia. But what do you say to the millions of Americans and people around the world who are concerned that the United States right now doesn't seem to understand who actually launched this war against Ukraine and is actually trying to sidle up to the bad guys, Putin and the Russians, while screwing over the good guys, Zelensky and Ukraine? I think that is a fear that a lot of Americans have.
Well, look, I've heard that kind of talk. I don't necessarily agree with it. But let me say this. I'll make a few comments. The first is that the war, irrespective of who started it, needs to end. Too many people's lives have been expunged as a result of it, and it just doesn't make sense to the president. He wants to be the peacemaking president, peace through strength, and I don't blame him. I actually concur right down the line with his thought process around this. That's one. Two, that the war didn't need to happen. It was provoked. It doesn't necessarily mean it was provoked by the Russians. There were all kinds of conversations back then about Ukraine joining NATO. The president has spoken about this. That didn't need to happen. It basically became a threat to the Russians. And so we have to deal with that fact. And those are real facts on the ground here. But be that as it may, the Russians have indicated that they are responsive to an end to this. There were very, very what I'll call cogent and substantive negotiations framed in something that's called the Istanbul Protocol Agreement. We came very, very.
We're at the table. We're at the table again. Oh my God. Boys. I don't want to freak you out, but Turkey's at the table. Turkey mentioned. Os bayrakları. Os. Bayrakları. Os. We are not just at the table. We are the table. Os bayrakları masadayız. Masa biziz. Steve Witkoff bile biliyor amına koyayım. Do you want to be at the table? No. As a Turk, I want to be the table. Okay? More terrorist propaganda. Yeah. God forbid you play military music from any country that's not America or the IDF. Then you're doing terror. You're doing propaganda, brother. Oh my God. Terrorist propaganda again. What's next? You gonna play that Yemeni song again? Huh? I hope you get banned.
very close to signing something, and I think we'll be using that framework as a guidepost to get a peace deal done between Ukraine and Russia, and I think that will be an amazing day. And the fact is, the president understands how to get deals done. Deals only work, Jake, when they're good for all the parties, and that's the pathway that we're on here.
Of course, just a reminder, viewers, Russia seized Ukrainian territory in 2014 with Crimea. They've been going into the Donbass region and seizing land in eastern Ukraine long before they attacked 3 years ago when they did the full frontal assault. You just suggested Russia was provoked. Trump is publicly attacking Zelensky as a dictator. He blamed him for starting the war in the first place, called for new elections in Ukraine, took NATO membership for Ukraine off the table. He said it's unlikely Ukraine will be able to get back its territory seized by Russia. Russian state TV suggests that President Trump is getting all of this straight from his conversations with President Putin. Take a listen.
Isn't it true that Ukraine joining NATO is viewed as a provocation towards Russia? Yes, but there's obviously more to Russia's ambitions in Ukraine than simply engaging in a defensive posture, especially considering that regardless of NATO expansion being presented as an option, it was never going to happen. And the real reason why it was never going to happen is because of Russia's long-standing energy partnership with European counterparts that have to vote for Ukraine to join NATO. Every world leader understood that this would be a unenforceable red line. Okay? That is the truth of the matter. So my position always has been, if I understood that as something that was never going to happen, why didn't Russia understand it as something that was never going to happen? And that is because they simply wanted Eastern Ukrainian territory. Okay? And not just Eastern Ukrainian territory. They just wanted to encroach upon as much of Ukrainian territory as they possibly can. You can try to use that. You can try to use some semblance of righteous cause when you're engaging in irredentist actions, but it does not matter. Okay? Just like when Vladimir Putin said he was doing it to denazify Ukraine. Ridiculous. Completely insane statement. Okay? Completely insane statement. When you say you wanted to do it to save Donbass, save LPR and DPR, also ridiculous. You've killed far more people than in the 14 years of back and forth, or the 10 plus years of back and forth. You've killed far more people in the last 3 years that you did over the course of the past 10 years of constant shelling. Okay? Also ridiculous. Does NATO play a role in this? Sure. But it doesn't matter. Ultimately, a smart leader is that is not interested in just simple territorial acquisition would not fall for this bait. Putin, on the other hand, used this bait as righteous cause. And look where we're at now.
Listen.
Trump отвечает на вопросы по поводу пресс-конференции,
When Trump is answering questions about the press conference, I think it is not a coincidence that many of the narratives that are being voiced largely materialized after their conversation.
но фразы, которые он дает,
The phrases he is saying are so deep and so correct. They are in total
Is a pretty good win for Russia? I don't think so. I disagree. The party that made the most out of the situation is the United States of America. Okay? The party that made the most out of the situation is the U.S. Russia lost a shit ton of resources and a shit ton of manpower in the process of like gaining territorial acquisition to the tune of 20% of Ukraine. Okay, like that's not a major W for Russia. If their goal was to undermine America's position on the global stage, they failed on that front as well. More countries joined NATO. Countries under the American security blanket pre-Donald Trump. Okay, hold on. Before you say, well, things are changing now. Before Donald Trump, every other American ally or every other country that is in the sphere of Western influence obviously looked at that situation and went, oh, shit, well, we need NATO more than ever before. Look at Finland. That would have never happened if Russia did not choose to invade Ukraine. Okay? I think that ultimately it's infinitely smarter to stick to trade. You're an energy provider. You already have these contracts. You can make yourself irreplaceable. And instead of doing that, you just engaged in bloody warfare. And guess who made out the most from that process? The United States of America. Because the United States of America is so far in proximity from all of this kind of war that they can do whatever the they want, pretty much. They can do whatever they want. And they did. They clawed back energy partnerships that European countries had with Russia, even though they technically didn't end that energy partnership. They just created an opportunity for other middlemen to make some money as the mediator, taking Russian energy and sending it directly to Europe. They forced Europe to open up their ports to American natural gas. Okay. And now Donald Trump comes in and he's like, also, you have to spend more of your GDP on your own self-defense. Weird take, bro. Russia doesn't care about territorial expansion. Ukraine was a Russian proxy state. None of this would have started if the CIA didn't get involved in manufactured color revolution. Regardless of what the CIA's involvement is in this process, I think you are silly if you think that Russia had to invade Ukraine. No, it's the wrong move. It was demonstrably the wrong move because this move allowed America to now talk about seizing Ukrainian assets. If the goal for the United States of America by way of espionage or by way of trade is to bring Ukraine into the Western sphere of influence and then ultimately create, conditional loan agreements and fully take over the industries and sectors that previously were controlled by the state and sell them off to capital owners, foreign capital, then they're getting that right now. They're getting that W. They're getting all of that. Yeah, also Russia lost Syria in the process too. So at the end of the day, America still wins, whether you like it or not.
total alignment with the way we see things.
Do you think it's good that the Russians think that the Trump administration is in total alignment with the way that Putin sees things?
I think we've had, Jake, by my estimation, almost 1.5 million deaths here. And finally, we have a leader, that is President Trump, who is determined to end the carnage. And so the only way you're going to end the carnage is if you have a relationship with the leaders of...
This was a successful statement. As you can see, Georgia is not on the table as well as other states in the Russian sphere of influence. Georgia hasn't been on the table since George W. Bush suggested it for NATO membership. And then Russia did what it's doing to Ukraine, or what Russia had done to Ukraine in 2014. It did in Georgia immediately after the George W. Bush statement on his way out. It has not been on the table for NATO membership since then.
Of both countries that are involved. I went over to Russia. I had a meeting with President Putin. It was a long meeting, positive, constructive. Lots of good things got discussed, in large part because the president enjoyed a positive relationship with President Putin from his first term in office. And that then evolved into a positive conversation with the president on a telephone call from the White House. And then there was a positive conversation with President Zelensky. So I think you've got to have these relationships. You've got to have communication. That's the only way you get deals done.
So President Trump wants President Zelensky to give the United States sweeping access to Ukraine's rare earth mineral deposits as repayment for all the aid the U.S. has given Ukraine. Zelensky rejected the original proposal. He suggests that Ukraine needs to get more assurances from the United States of future support and security guarantees. Where do these negotiations stand?
Well, Jake, let me say this with regard to the mineral rights agreement. The president came into office, and lo and behold, what did he find out? That we are the majority share of the aid to Ukraine, so we're funding it, and we were funding it with no arrangement to pay it back. Alternatively, the Europeans, who were most affected by this war, were funding the minority share, and they had agreements to pay it back. So, as is typical of the president, he's very, very sensible. He said to himself, that makes no sense to me. Why would the American public, taxpayers here, be funding the majority share, not get anything back? The Europeans funding the minority share, they get everything back. So this agreement is much about repayment for all that we have done on behalf of the Ukrainian people. And that's the way the president sees it. I expect to see a deal signed this week. You saw President Zelensky.
Yeah, I'm sure Europeans loved cutting off their previous energy deals. They probably loved it. Like when the Nord Stream pipeline exploded, who knows who did that? Okay, who knows who was responsible for that? I don't know. Remember when people were saying Russia probably did that to themselves? That's another part of the process that is like incredibly frustrating. When I say something doesn't smell right, or when I say something that is like objectively untrue, even if it is objectively untrue, people go, "Oh, you're pro-Russia." There's no attempt to even like undermine the argument that I'm presenting. There's no attempt to even prove their own personal position. It's just basically, nope, you're pro-Russia, and that's it. And people just eat that shit up.
Waver in his commitment towards that a week ago. The president sent a message to him. He's not wavering anymore. I think there's a reason he's not wavering. It's because he realizes that we have done so much, and that agreement belongs being signed. And I think you'll see it signed this week.
President Trump has been putting a lot.
I'm not saying this is definitely going to happen, but like this is ironically not dissimilar to America's previous initiatives with the Mujahideen, and look how that turned out. Look at Afghanistan, you know, look at 9/11, you know, we'll see what happens. But I'm fairly certain that like undermining Ukrainian sovereignty to this degree, after training them and arming them, especially the far-right nationalist forces that you've trained and armed as well, who are now understandably seen as liberators, okay? And then wronging them deliberately like this, I suspect is going to cause a lot of anger and resentment. A tremendous amount of weapons is now on the European continent. Someone's going to use those weapons.
A lot of pressure on Ukrainian President Zelensky, as you just noted, and laying out the concessions Ukraine will have to make to end the war. What concessions will Russia have to make?
Well, I think in any peace deal, each side is going to make concessions, whether it's territorial concessions, whether it's economic concessions. I think there's a whole array of things that happen in a deal, and you'll see concessions from both sides. And that's the president's, that's what he does best. He brings people together. He gets them to understand that the pathway to peace is concessions and consensus building. And I think you're going to see a very successful result here. We've been struggling with this conflict for 3.5 years. No different than Gaza. The president has basically said to himself, we need something more purposeful. What we've been doing in the past has not worked. Now it's time to get something to work. And if we get something to work, then we're going to have a lot less we're going to have lives saved, and both peoples in both countries are going to live in a better way.
The biggest difference, as I see it, between the two conflicts are that there's also this question of the European alliance when it comes to the Ukraine-Russia conflict. The front runner to be the next Chancellor of Germany, Friedrich Merz, warned European leaders that they must, quote, prepare for the possibility that Donald Trump will no longer uphold NATO's mutual defense commitment unconditionally. That's part of the NATO pact. An attack on one is an attack on all. You're a close advisor to President Trump, a close friend of his. If Russia attacked a NATO ally, would President Trump honor the United States' commitment under Article 5 to defend allies in NATO?
I think the president has
Just checking in. Has the empire crumbled yet? No. You'll know when it's crumbling because it's not going away quietly.
has never said anything of the sort. I think what he said is that NATO exists, that the U.S. has always supported NATO, that we've supported it by funding more money than the European countries have in the past, and yet he continues, or Americans continue to be criticized for.
Holy shit, I didn't think about Article 5, Lamau. You think he'd back up NATO or not? I've said this before in the early stages of like Putin's actions. I have this suspicion that the only reason why America would ever defend Eastern Europe against, like, if Russia was truly powerful enough to be able to like wipe out Ukraine, overtake it, and then move directly into Poland, I don't know if America would defend it. The only reason why America would ever defend NATO in that situation would be specifically to make sure that people understand that you don't f with America. You know what I mean? To reinforce American power. Like, do I think America cares about Poland at all? No, I don't. I don't think that America cares even a little bit about Poland and Eastern European countries in general. Western Europe is a little different of a story. I think like at that point you've gone too far, but I think it's just strategic posturing at this point. I mean, look at America's lack of interest in Europe right now, like with the tariffs. It's so obvious that America just does not give a shit about any of its allies. When push comes to shove, America clearly doesn't even care about Western Europe either. Look at what we're doing to Western Europe's economy currently. Yeah, Trump would get up there and be like, yep, it was Poland's fault. Trump would blame Ukraine for letting Russia into Poland. Trump would blame Poland. He'd be like, Poland, World War II, the responsible party. We're the Polish. Why were you looking so good? Light bulbs. Everybody talks about light bulbs. The Polish, they can't put the light bulb up, folks, believe me. Y'all don't care about Canada either? That's what I'm saying. The American government does not care about any of our allies. Except for Israel, okay? Except for Israel. We are ride or die, baby. Other than that, nobody matters. Europe was never an ally, more like a servant. Yeah. Also, the other side of the story is, and I do mention this all the time, but people seem to forget, America as a government doesn't even care about American people. If we did, we would have health care, dog. Like, we don't care about shit. The only thing we care about is this, okay? Money. Wealthy people making more money, corporations and their bottom line. There's never been a moment. America is the perfect expression of capitalism, okay? It was the perfect proto-capitalist nation, pre-industrial revolution, pre-capitalism, and it is the perfect capitalist nation. Like before we started talking about markets and whatnot, America was so primed, so perfectly ready for capitalism. Just like for many American Jewish people that don't really care about the religion at all, Zionism has basically become the religion. For Americans, many Americans don't give a shit about religion at all. Like many Americans, ultimately, Christian, Jewish, whatever their background is, don't necessarily give a f about the religious scripture and the religious text and abiding by those standards. Hell, we've actually changed the Christian religion to suit the purposes of capital more, like prosperity gospel. America's religion is capitalism. Why Israel? Please explain what's so special about it. It's our little tiny unsinkable aircraft carrier with its own espionage capabilities in a resource-rich region that we desperately want to maintain control over. So it's America's 51st state, but it's also more important than some other lame-ass states too. They also literally do have better social safety nets than we do. That's the other side of this. Like, Jesus.
For not standing up. I just don't understand the rationale behind that.
So Friedrich
we've done more than most. Yeah, I just think it's unfair. actually.
Turning to the Middle East, the ceasefire in Gaza is at risk. Hamas released 6 more Israeli hostages.
Wow, that's crazy. It's a risk, huh? I wonder who's spoiling it. I wonder who's spoiling the second stage of the negotiations.
Weekend, but Israel then refused to release hundreds of Palestinian prisoners, accusing Hamas of using those hostages for propaganda. In the meantime, Israel's army has stepped up its military operations in the West Bank. Deborah Patta has more on that.
I wish Israel, when releasing their hostages, would use their conditions as propaganda. Not because they currently do, but their propaganda is one of domination. They parade the Palestinian hostages that they release as, like, you know, in horrible conditions, losing arms, legs, clearly tortured. That's the propaganda. It's a propaganda of domination. Okay? When they say Palestinians, Hamas, and Islamic Jihad, when they release Israeli hostages, they're doing propaganda. It's like, yeah, dude, no shit. Except their propaganda is, look, in spite of everything you've done, look at the conditions that we're releasing your hostages. Look at the dignity that we've offered to your hostages and the conditions that we release them, as opposed to how you release our hostages. Okay? Israel constantly complains about propaganda when their immediate solution to that would quite literally be to not do Israel shit. Don't rape the Palestinian prisoners to death. That's a good starting position, I think. You know? Can't believe I'm saying this. The Israeli prison service just as Palestinian prisoners enclosed bearing the Star of David symbol and the phrase "We do not forget and we do not forgive." Yeah, they see the Israeli hostages being released with like keffiyehs, and they go, "Okay, it's time. It's time to really show you what's what." Like, do the same thing. Do the same thing. Release them in good condition. Why can't you do that? Is that too hard? On the other hand, those motherfuckers are getting bombed every day. They don't have food. They're getting bombed every day. And in spite of all of that, they still try to show, like, hey, what you're saying is incorrect. We're undermining the propaganda that you've said about the Hamas movement or the Palestinian movement as a whole. The problem, though, and we talked about this quite a bit, the problem here is, yeah, here it is. Prisoner Mohammed Abu Tawila released from Israeli jails. Israel's angry with the hostage ceremonies in Gaza. Meanwhile, they're doing this to the Palestinians. And the thing is, the existence of Palestinians is already offensive. The fact that Palestinians exist and also fight back against Israel is unimaginably offensive. It is humiliating if your entire nation-state project revolves around saying these are subhuman that must be forcibly excised from these lands that we must take, that is our land, then yeah, virtually every reminder that they exist or even dare to fight back is going to be infinitely humiliating. This is precisely the reason why you're being a bit friendly towards Hamas. Let's not forget they're a terrorist organization. Yeah, okay, dude. Sure. Jesus Christ. Like, how are you openly recognizing that this is a thought-terminating cycle here? Like, you're engaging in it. You're literally openly stating it. You know that, right? The real truth teller. You're being a bit friendly towards Hamas. Why? Because I'm saying that, like, they have, not because of morality. I'm not making the argument that, like, Hamas is trying to keep the hostages to the best of their ability in the best conditions possible, even though those conditions are still horrifying because they're in Gaza. Okay? And it's not because out of the kindness of their hearts. It's because that's their leverage. It's their bargaining chip. When I say that, which is a correct fact, it's just the objective analysis, you think that is being too friendly to Hamas. This is so stupid. It's ridiculous. You literally, when you say that, you're like, no, I want you to say that they're barbaric monsters, please. It's crazy. And you're also saying that while you're watching an out and about organization by the name of the Israeli state and its immediate consequences on Palestinians and how they have mistreated Palestinians. Like, that is on the backdrop here, and you're like, well, you're being quite friendly to terrorists. Who's the real terrorist here? It's insane. Oh, that's what's so frustrating about this, is that people don't want to recognize that, you know, previous things that they've been socially conditioned into believing might not be true. So instead of, like, re-examining their relationship, they just double down and go, no, the other side that's telling me must be wrong. There must be some cynical reason. What is that cynical reason? He's secretly anti-Semitic. That's what this must be. Okay? You can't imagine a world. No, I'm saying it's damaging to be as friendly to Hamas as you are being. It can be misinterpreted. I don't give a dude. Oh man, it can be misinterpreted. It already is. People purposely weaponize any kind of sentiment that you have that's pro-Palestinian as being friendly to terrorist organizations, like any kind of anti-Israeli sentiment as anti-Semitism. I don't give a shit. I know. The irony, of course, is that these people get away with lying. These people get away with saying whatever the they want about Israel because Israel is America's ally. And there's plenty of mainstream outlets that will openly do this propaganda. Yeah, 7 cops to be charged for allegedly branding the Palestinian with Star of David. I'm good on that, man. If you don't want Hamas to exist, if you have an issue with Hamas, okay, in its tactics or in its form of governance, its domestic affairs, and if you want Hamas to perish, the easiest solution there is to stop Israel from occupying Palestinians and dominating their lives, is to end and abolish the apartheid. Okay, that's it. That's it. And it's so shocking that people just refuse to reckon with that. And it's gross when it's also gross when people who are ashamed because they understand that they're progressive enough or are in like progressive circles or have a somewhat progressive audience, they're so ashamed of openly defending Israel that they have to turn around and be like, no, I'm actually pro-Palestinian, but you know what? I'm the only correct pro-Palestinian. Everyone else is actually wrong in their defense of Palestinians. They're doing it wrong. Listen to me, a guy who spends all of his time shitting on everyone that is an advocate for the Palestinian cause. Okay? Come on. Come on, dude. Are you that stupid? The out of here. I'm sorry, but if you're that easily duped, then yeah, you're gonna find yourself believing anything, okay? They either do that or pick the no sides are right approach. I know. It's like you're looking at a big dog. What do you mean no sides are right? Nah, we don't know anyone like that. Oh, I know someone like that. I know someone like that. And you all know someone like that too. There's a lot of people like that though.
Part of the story.
Good morning. Israeli tanks have moved into the occupied West Bank for the first time in over 2 decades.
What is
the military
this?
operation comes amidst fears that the fragile Gaza ceasefire, set to expire by the end of the week, will not be extended. The last living...
I love you, bro, but you complain like a diva? What do you mean? What is the complaint? Like, are you having a hard time understanding? Do you think the complaint is valid or not? XX Destiny 2. No, this is not a Destiny simp. It's worse. It's a person who loves playing Destiny 2. I love you, bro, but I hate when you complain that people try to present themselves as pro-Palestinian and simply engage in the most ridiculous Hasbara pro-Israel expressions you ever heard of. Yeah, all right. I guess I'm a diva then.
Israeli hostages to be freed as part of the 6-week truce were reunited with loved ones.
I should stop being a diva. And by that, I mean threaten to dox people that work at Reddit, threaten to dox random anonymous Reddit users, okay, with frivolous defamation lawsuits with the express purpose of trying to get their private information so I can get my psychopathic audience to go around and smear random people as anti-Semites. Because, you know, if you criticize me correctly because you assessed the things that I'm saying and it comes across like I'm attacking all of the pro-Palestinian groups, maybe even calling Jewish Voice for Peace capos, for example, okay, which is, you know, pretty good indication that you might not necessarily be on the side of the Palestinians here. And when people call you a Zionist, you turn around and you're like, well, that's defamation. That's anti-Semitism. Okay, well, you know, good luck. That's the non-diva position.
Over the weekend. But in Gaza, families waited in vain after Israel said it had delayed the release of more than 600 Palestinian prisoners until Hamas stops what it calls its humiliating hostage handovers. Hamas now says it will not engage in any further negotiations until the prisoners are handed over. Families of captives still in Gaza are insisting talks must continue. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was heckled during a military graduation on Sunday, accused of abandoning Shiri Bibas and her 2 boys after their bodies were finally brought home for burial. U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, arrives in the region later this week in a bid to ensure the ceasefire holds for a second phase. Vlad?
Deborah Pata in East Jerusalem, thank you very much.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, not only are they intentionally sabotaging, Israel is not only intentionally sabotaging this ceasefire deal as predicted, as was always going to happen, of course, but they're also, what, Hasan, did you know that you're in desperate need of therapy and intervention from your friends, Cutie, Ludwig, Austin, and Will? Someone on the internet told me that. Yeah, definitely. I'm the one who needs therapy. Yeah, while they're doing that, they're also moving aggressively in pursuit of completely Gazifying the West Bank.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is warning the army is on standby to restart its war on Gaza. It comes a day after Israel suspended the latest release of Palestinian prisoners as part of January's ceasefire deal.
We are prepared to resume intense fighting at any moment. Our operational plans are ready. Let me state our core policies. In Gaza, we have eliminated most of Hamas's organised forces, but let there be no doubt we will complete the war's objectives entirely, including this one. This can be achieved either through negotiation or by other means.
Let's bring in Bassem Naim, a member of Hamas's political bureau. Many thanks for being with us. What is Hamas's response to Israel withholding the release of 620 Palestinian prisoners?
Thank you very much. And let me start with the condemnation of all words towards the Israeli offensive in the northern part of the West Bank, and unfortunately the silence of the international community towards what's happening there, the continuous killing and destruction against our refugees in the different refugee camps in the north. I think we have signed an agreement on January 19th, and this agreement, this deal, signed from both parties, and with the guarantees of the mediators, the Qataris, the Egyptians, and the Americans, we have fulfilled all our obligations according to the...
Am I crazy? But why was there such a mess on the ceasefire when he's saying on TV they're going to attack right away? Does he think no one watches the TV? No, because it doesn't matter. It's cognitive dissonance. Israel has literally done this for the past 16 months. Why the f would they not do it further? They did it with the Biden administration, and the Trump administration is even more aggressive in their outward commentary on this. The Biden administration routinely allowed Israel to dog walk them over and over again. Why? Like, if you teach Israel that you're never going to actually hold them to account and that they can violate whatever bullshit red lines you're presenting in front of them, why would they not do this? You know? Yeah, this journalist is a terror sympathizer. Why would she have on and interview a member of a terror organization? Who? Exactly. Yeah. What you're supposed to do is sit around, close your eyes, and assume that every Palestinian person is an illogical monster barbarian. Okay? They're barbaric monsters. That's what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to ever hear what they have to say. You're not supposed to actually go, I wonder who's really violating these deals over and over again consistently. Okay?
Deal. We were committed strictly to the deal. Unfortunately, all the time, Netanyahu and his government were trying to undermine the deal, to sabotage the deal. They have committed a lot of violations, killed more than 100 Palestinians, prevented most of the basic needs of the Palestinians to enter the Gaza Strip. And lastly, he has refused to release more.
How come the anger in Israel doesn't cause more pressure on Netanyahu? It has so far. That's why he had to do 2 ceasefire negotiations. But that's only a small part of the pressure. It's not enough. The pressure is clearly not enough. None of these countries actually care about popular mobilization until that popular mobilization turns into a literal rebellion, America included. Is a part of the failure of this tactic, though, that the rest of the world has been watching and Israel is cementing itself as a pariah state regardless of what's being said in Israel proper? I mean, I think most people just want to stop thinking about that. You know what I mean? Most people want to just stop paying attention to this stuff. How do you not get unbelievably angry at people running defense for Israel publicly? I can't stand it. So many people do it. And, you know, if I want to operate in civil society without losing my mind, I have to just kind of eat it a little bit. That's it. In an effort to be as normal as possible, in an effort to be able to get people to charitably hear out my position and get people to recognize the humanity of Palestinians, I just have to, you know, sometimes hold myself back.
More than 600 Palestinians prisoners, according to the deal, because we have released the 6 living Israelis plus.
But what is
4
Hamas's
bodies.
response to these violations?
We have said it, and we have conveyed a clear and strong message to the mediators. We cannot continue talking or discussing any further steps if these 620 Palestinians are not released.
So when you say you're not going to continue discussing further steps, so if we look at the immediate future, Hamas was due to release 4 bodies of Israeli captives this week. Is that going to go ahead?
All options are on the table because before going to the next step, we have to be sure that the past step, which is releasing 620 prisoners, are already released, because Netanyahu is clearly sending strong messages that he is intentionally sabotaging the deal. He is preparing the atmosphere for returning back to the war. Therefore, what are the guarantees that he might take the other 4 bodies and again not release the agreed upon number of Palestinians plus the 620 Palestinians? Therefore, all options on the table, not only the what should happen on Thursday, but even the other elements of the deal.
Yeah, phase 2. I want to get to that in just a second. First of all, I just want to put to you that Israel says it will release the 620 Palestinian prisoners if Israel changes the way, if Hamas changes the way it hands over Israeli captives. Israel is calling these ceremonies with the stage and the captives being brought up onto the stage and holding certificates humiliating. Is Hamas willing to do that, to make those changes?
First of all, he can describe it as he will, but if he considers this as a humiliation, I think ICRC and a lot of human rights bodies have documented and bring a lot of proofs that our prisoners 3-4 days before being released are taken to isolation cells and tortured 24 hours, starved. Their families were threatened not to show any sign of joy that they have received, that they are receiving their children after 20, 30, 40 years. I think we are ready to discuss any option, any proposal if it comes to the shape. But we want also to be sure that our prisoners are dealing with them in a respectful way. Second, I think we don't see this as a humiliation. We have seen spontaneous acts from the prisoners, from the Israeli prisoners, who for Netanyahu were outrageous, like kissing the head of one of the fighters. No one asked him to do it, but he did it spontaneously. I think this was not a humiliation. This is he decided to do it alone.
The other female combatants that were released as well threw up the peace sign and shit like that. Okay, like it's just like when the last time the dude dabbed up the Hamas people before getting into the car, and Israel gets very mad at stuff like that. Okay, and what's hilarious about it is that even if it is done under duress, it is still infinitely, like, it is still supposed to be a show to say, like, hey, look at the treatment of the Palestinians. Israel does the exact opposite. They dump the Palestinians. They dump their bodies after raping them to death, okay, in an unsanctioned pile. Like, I cannot believe that they were so mad about the ceremony. Like, they were like, how dare you? How dare you? How dare you put the family members in coffins? Okay? It is virtually, it doesn't matter what they're doing. What matters is the reality that it happened, okay? What matters is not the ways in which Hamas is releasing the hostages, because throughout this entire process, throughout this past month, throughout the first stage of the ceasefire, Hamas would release hostages in a crowd. Israel would get mad. They would say, "You're mistreating our hostages. How dare you release them in this commotion?" Then they would do an orderly procedure and do this stage theater thing that they were doing, okay? Where they would release the hostages on stage. Then they would get mad at that. They're like, "Oh, you're using our hostages as you're using our hostages as a talking point. You're trying to show the world that your treatment, in spite of the fact that you took them as literal hostages, okay, which is already a cruel act in and of itself. But when you do that, how dare you try to make it seem like you didn't mistreat our hostages? That's propaganda. You." Then they would go back to the commotion. Then they'd say, "Oh, look, it's a commotion. Look at these animals." The point is, there is no right way of releasing these hostages in the eyes of the Israeli state, because they're mad that the hostages were taken to begin with, which is an understandable position, okay? But they're extra mad because how dare they? How dare these people that are supposed to be captive, the Palestinian population, actually lay a hand on us, actually strike back at us? That is what the true anger and resentment is. That's why there's no correct way of releasing hostages, okay? Yeah, I saw this earlier as well. Exactly. A truly sick, depraved culture, says Libs of TikTok, for this, okay? A performative funeral procession for dead Israelis is sick and depraved, but Israel dumping the bodies of 80 unidentified Palestinians, likely from their torture chambers, out of a truck into Gaza and leaving is solemn and dignified. It's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. There's no correct way to do this. That's it. There is no correct way for Palestinians to resist. Peaceful resistance means you get killed, okay? Violent resistance means you get killed extra hard. Please explain how it was a genocide when 100% of the buildings were destroyed, but less than 5% are dead on the Arab side in Gaza. Plus, I don't recall Hamas sent a warning to Israel prior to the attack like Israel did in retaliation, while their leadership built bunkers for themselves, but not their civilians. Isn't there anything here that sounds wrong with you? Or is it the same Western powers are bad bullshit while you live in one? Yeah, dude, I'm simply saying America bad without giving you exact evidence. I mean, I think if you scratch the surface of this commentary right here, you would probably understand why this is completely unacceptable. You literally actively said 80% of buildings were destroyed in Gaza, but not enough Palestinians were killed in the process. How could you say this is a... What a ridiculous statement to make. Reverse the roles. Do you think October 7 would have been appropriate if Hamas had superior firepower? That's the crazy thing. Like, Hamas actually wanted to do a on all Jews, right? Palestinians just have this like antiquated anti-Semitic gene in them, right? And they wanted to... October 7 was a... What Israel has done since then is not. Okay, so if Hamas had superior air power and completely controlled the airspace, had access to the literal Israeli, the actual Israeli population, knew exactly who lived where, okay, and controlled the entirety of the Israeli population in an open air prison where they controlled all matter of trade, and then they dropped flyers on top of Israel, and then they bombed Israel into oblivion, you would not have this attitude. You'd be like, it's a... And I would say that too, by the way. If roles were reversed, yes, I would say that is the fact that Israel is stronger is not valid. It's not a... What do you mean? Of course. What? This is such pure cope. Okay? It's pure cope. How you doing back there? Okay. Yeah, a is only a if it's successful is not the argument you want to make. You know what I mean? Chatter said, Arab side, you're debating an IDF soldier. Stop taking the bait, dumbass. I mean, I'll debate these motherfuckers all day, every day. This is ridiculous. Role reversal in this situation would objectively lead you to understand that this is a... Okay? If any Muslim population had 6 million to 8 million Jews trapped in an open air prison and they consistently bombed it over and over again and killed a couple 100,000 here and there, and 80% of the standing structures were reduced to rubble, you would literally be like, that is the most that has ever happened. What are you talking about? And I would be right there with you in openly acknowledging that that is, as a matter of fact, okay, if you bully me and I hurt you, I will stand for a trial? What? If you bully me, 75 years of endless occupation isn't simply bullying, for the record. Okay? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Is Israel an apartheid state or not? We can start there. If your answer is no, then you are already delusional and refusing to reckon with the reality. You forgot the partition plans? No, you don't understand. It's not a... It's a Bantustan and an apartheid. Yeah, I don't... You just don't get it, dude. We just want to do Bantustans. You know, like another country did. That was sick. That was cool when they did it, right? It's just an apartheid. Anyway... Who rejected it? Israel has consistently either brought forth ridiculous proposals, they continue their domination, okay, or outwardly denied any kind of reasonable proposition. Wait, hold on. Any kind of reasonable proposition offered by the Palestinian side.
Lastly, I think it is not about the shape, because we have a lot of violations. Again, more than 100 Palestinians killed. If he is talking about humiliation, he is already killing Palestinians.
I understand the use of the word humiliating is provoking, but I also want to get to the bottom of if this is the only thing that is preventing the release of 620 Palestinian prisoners. Is it a concession that Hamas is willing to make?
Yes, we are ready to discuss all these issues, but we want to be sure that he is taking the decision to release our prisoners.
So what efforts are being made then to have these discussions, to have these movements forward in this sticking point?
Again, if you can repeat it again, please.
What efforts are currently being made? What dialogue is happening to have to free up this stick?
30 seconds into this video is a perfect explanation.
So for those who missed it, today Hamas released 6 Israeli prisoners. And in exchange for these 6 prisoners, Israel was supposed to release some 600 Palestinian prisoners. Now, in today's release, one of the Israeli prisoners, in fact, was kissing the foreheads of his captors, or those who were moments prior to that, his captors, shortly before being released into the custody of the Red Cross and then back to be with their families. At the 11th hour, though, Israel decided that it was not going to release the 600 Palestinians until Hamas guarantees that in all future exchanges that there will be no pomp and circumstance and ceremony. So now I want to unpack a little bit about why that is. Now, it's really important to keep in mind, and I cannot emphasize this enough, Israel is a Jewish supremacist state. And as a Jewish supremacist state, Israel necessarily needs to see Palestinians in a complete and utter state of submission all the time. And that's why it was really important for the Israelis upon the first state.
100%. That's literally it. That's it. I mean, yeah, anyone who understands the dynamic, anyone who's even a little bit well read about this, that also simultaneously like sees, anyone who is even a little bit well read about this or sees the Palestinians as human beings recognizes that reality. Everyone else that looks for alternative reasons is basically obfuscating the truth and trying to do propaganda for the apartheid state. That's it. You can do that in many different ways. Some people choose the cowardly route. Many people actively will say, no, Israel's awesome. All Palestinians, all Arabs are animals and they deserve to be killed. Okay? The f do you mean? The coward's way in this circumstance is to claim that you are pro-Palestinian. It's just that the Palestinians, their resistance is wrong and bad. You're pro-Palestinian emancipation, but what is happening? You're pro-Palestinian emancipation. It's just that, you know, you spend all of your time shitting on people who are advocating for Palestinian emancipation. Or some people do this both sides. Both sides is awful shit, people causing this whole thing. Brother, if you're both sidesing the most powerful state in the region, backed by the most powerful state on the planet, destroying all standing structures in an open-air prison that they are the belligerent occupier of, they're in direct contravention of international law, then you're basically saying you're pro-Israel. This is the problem. Don't try to both sides this shit. There is no both sides here. That's ridiculous. That is my real red line, okay? It's a cop-out. Just say it with your chest. Just be like, nah, Israel's awesome. It's a Western-aligned nation, and I like it. I think that's more honest. The issue here is people try to assume like a centrist role here. You try to assume A central source here, like, what about Hamas's leadership's billions? Dude, they're dead. What are you talking about? Israel assassinated the head of the Hamas Politburo, not a militant, okay? The principal negotiator in Tehran, in a separate country, okay? In a foreign adversary's capital. Think about it this way. Hassan Nasrallah's funeral proceedings took place yesterday, okay? It was widely attended. Israel violated Lebanese airspace by flying over it. It's like a serial killer coming back to the scene of the crime and being like, yep, I did it, at the funeral proceeding, and being like, yeah, I did it, with a gun, with the murder weapon, and being like, yeah, what are you going to do about it, bitch? It's ridiculous. Everybody knows what's up. Everybody understands what's going on. They tweeted the photo of their low-flying planes violating the Lebanese airspace. People talk about like, oh, what about the leadership of Hamas making billions? Like, yeah, dude, how did Yahya Sinwar die? Israel, for literally 60 months, lied and said, oh, he's chained to like 8 Israeli prisoners at all times, as though Israel stops itself from bombing places when there's Israelis in him. Israel has killed a ton of hostages themselves personally, sometimes with direct conventional weapons, like sometimes literally them in the back as they're waving a goddamn white flag saying, we're Israeli, we're Israeli. Okay? They lied and said, oh, he's in the tunnels. They lied and said, oh, he's escaped. He just wants all the Palestinians to die. How did Yahya Sinwar die? He died fighting. That was a lie. He went down fighting. You can cry about it all day. You can be like, he's a butcher. I think he's also telling us Sinwar was randomly killed during a skirmish and not targeted by the Israeli occupying force. They didn't even know he was there when they had killed him. Yeah, exactly. Virtually everything that Israel says about its campaigns are, I don't get it, man. You will be reasonable most of the time, but the moment this topic comes up, you become crazy. Can we recognize that both sides have done bad things at least, and this entire situation is bad for both sides? Yes. Okay. And I have. The atrocities that took place on October 7 still entirely are in the hands of Israel. And I don't mean like they directly killed every Israeli person. Okay. I'm not saying like it's a Hannibal directive. Stop trying to both sides of the situation. Israel holds all the cards. That's just the reality of the situation. And people seemingly don't want to recognize it. It's very frustrating. Okay. I don't get it, man. You're reasonable most of the time. Can you also admit that the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising really escalated the maintenance of the concentration camps? You know, what were Jewish people supposed to do in that situation? Not resist? Not rise up? You know? Oh, I'm sorry. Can you please recognize that the Nat Turner Rebellion actually really stopped the abolitionist movement dead in its tracks? Can you openly admit that the ANC's militancy, including car bombs they used from time to time, greatly extended the apartheid? There are no both sides only when it's said and done, okay? In the moment, liberals still do routinely resist. The standard of violence is always set by the oppressor, but they were not being killed in Gaza before October 7. What? Palestinians were not being killed in Gaza before October 7? First of all, on October 6, Euromed Monitor released a report saying that 2023 was the deadliest year for Palestinian children so far. Okay? And that wasn't just Gaza, that was the West Bank. Okay? The f do you mean there was no violence in Gaza? There was no one being killed in Gaza before October 7. What are you talking about? Someone just show this dingus the chart, please. The numerous mowing of the lawn operations that Israel has conducted in Gaza. Man, I don't follow this stuff. How am I supposed to know? Well, if you don't follow this stuff and if you don't know anything, why do you come in here and act like you know some shit? There are plenty of people that don't know anything. They at least have the decency to not try to contest objectionable things like unconscionable violence whenever I describe it. Look at this. Where's the one that just shows not this one, the one that shows like Israeli casualties and Palestinian casualties side by side. 75 years of military occupation. The Israeli state was built, okay? The Israeli state was literally built with mass ethnic displacement. The Nakba. I have no hope for the average American. They're all going to get us killed. Yeah, I mean, there you go. Look at that. Please read or listen to 100 Years of War in Palestine. I don't think you're talking to me, right? Because this is a book that I've also recommended and read. This is a chart from 2021, by the way, and it's just from 2008 to 2020. We need to watch this. Gaza Fights for Freedom. I've already watched this on stream. The thing is, you don't even need to know. You don't even need to know what happened prior to October 7 to understand how this dynamic works, because you can look at everything October 7 onward and recognize exactly how this works. That's the problem. So for the past 60 months, you must have had your head in the sand or something. That's what's so crazy about this. Don't look at the last post of the chatter. Why? What did he say? I just came in here to watch Gooner video reactions and then saw something I believe was false and chose to contest it. Okay, well, now you know the truth. I hope you change your perspective. It's crazy. I mean, that chatter basically is more open-minded than the overwhelming majority of chatters that come in here with idiotic takes. I've been meaning to watch this BBC documentary that was pulled from the airwaves after one day, but I just don't know. I don't know how much TOS is in it.
Be careful.
How do you deal with that entitlement so calmly? Because he didn't immediately call me like a anti-Semitic. Because most people that come in here with contentious attitudes like that, without any knowledge whatsoever of the situation, will just immediately hit that line.
Enjoy yourself. Good morning. You all right?
My name is Abdullah. I'm 13 years old. I'm stuck here in Gaza. Have you ever wondered what you'd do if your world was destroyed? Could you live in a tent?
Apparently, there's a lot of gore amputations that are shown, and one of the children works directly with an ambulance crew. I have seen it. I haven't seen it, but read a lot about it. Yeah, that's the reason why I don't want to watch it, because I'm worried. The only issue with the documentary that they pulled is that the translations from Arabic are not accurate and are misleading, intending to show people of Gaza with more resentment towards Hamas than they actually had at the moment. Holy shit. TOS 11. Oh my God, that's a lot of TOS.
Raise your baby. Would you help people? Would you try and have some fun? Most important, could you stay alive? After all this, you could say we're experts. So let me tell you our story. Who knows? One day you might need it.
This kid's father was the agriculture minister in Gaza, i.e. Hamas terrorists. So the BBC pulled this doc. Oh, nice. Good stuff.
Let's continue our journey. Today I'm revisiting Khan Yunis camp. Right here.
I need you to understand something, by the way. Even before October 7, more than 50% of the Gazan population was under the age of 18. Okay? Or 50%, at least 50% of the Gazan population is under the age of 18. Okay? So when you're wondering, like, why are there so many children, okay, in documentaries, or why are they taking an active role? It's because a ginormous percentage of the people that Israel is killing are children. Because a ginormous percentage of the Gazan population is children, okay? Just so you understand. When I say they're baby killers, this is what I mean. It is a literal fact. BBC faces questions over Gaza Film's Hamas link. Yeah, this is a baby Hamas. This is a child Hamas. Unironically, like the depravity, dude, the depravity of pro-Israeli people is so pro-Israel people is so crazy to me. Showing you this is terrifying for a lot of people who are pro-Israel, and that's precisely the reason why they do everything and anything they can to disparage anyone that shows you the reality on the ground. Okay, that's it. That's it. That's the only thing. There is no real conversation here. Are there anti-Semitic people who absolutely claim to care about Palestinians in an effort to launder anti-Semitic sentiment? Absolutely. There are. 100%. Virtually every single person that claims that about me, however, knows full well that I am not an anti-Semitic person. Okay? Speaking of which, you should see, look, this dipshit is still doing it. This guy literally has been doing it all day. Okay? All day. Look at this. So I found out you were mixing up stories. One person possibly killed in Israel in holding by sexual assault. The piles of dumped bodies were bodies insanely seized by Israel from morgues. Check if they held hostages in their morgues. Speaking, oh, sorry. So when they dumped their bodies, they didn't intend to do it. They didn't intend to humiliate the Palestinians. Got it. Speaking of which, you shouldn't have said baby settlers thing. Yeah, the baby settlers thing, which is another thing that was ironically clipped when I was directly having a conversation with the person who then relitigated it a year and a half later. Ironically, my argument there, considering that I'm a one-stater, is that regardless of valid military targets, okay, considering the West Bank valid military targets as my interlocutor did at the time, okay, I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think I wasn't advocating to kill baby settlers, you dumb f. It was the opposite. That is precisely the reason why I say that I am an advocate for a one-state solution, because I think it's cruel now that there are 700,000 people that live there. I think it'd be cruel to forcibly rip them. That's so crazy. It's so crazy. Virtually everything that disingenuous assholes. Oh, wait, 80% of buildings destroyed is in. We called it Uyghur one because they imprison people, re-educate, maybe kill a few. That's just, how is this not? This person is literally saying. This person is literally taking the most insane stance here. He recognizes what Israel is doing is, but then still has fallen for a clip chimp. What? You should check out Olasun Via's. Hasan does nothing wrong. The truth isn't important. Just say whatever gets views. Hasan does nothing wrong. Wait, what? Very confusing stuff here. So I'm giving you I'm giving you what my position is, but then you just turn around and say this shit. Like, am I not supposed to correct you and just act like, yeah, no, I did indeed have a position that I don't have? What a strange situation. So you expect us to live next to our Hasan, you can't expect us to live next to the people who kill our families and children because it would be cruel for them to go back to the country they invaded from. The unfortunate reality is that is precisely how history has worked forever. Okay? Every single person that has done a crime should offer restitution for it. This doesn't mean that those crimes should go unaddressed. Okay? But that's the underlying basis, creating a truth and reconciliation committee and then addressing all of the wrongdoings. That's it. Anyway. Okay, so don't articulate yourself when you're literally saying, well, there are baby settlers in a conversation about targeting children in war. Like, yes, you can walk it back now. That's not my problem. I'm not walking it back now, you idiot. That's not how conversations work. That's not my problem. I knew that was going to trigger you because you never check yourself. Okay, well, have fun with that. That's not how conversations work. You can't just literally be like, in a back and forth conversation, you applied terminology that could be clipped out of context. That's on you. What do you mean? The fuck are you talking about? Don't you care about what my actual position is? Like, what do you mean? You just want to argue? You're like, I know that that's not your position, but it's really fucked up that you allowed yourself to be clipped out of context by the person I was having a conversation with who knows my actual opinion on the matter. Months later, too, a year later, get the fuck out of here. There's nothing funnier to me than being a guy who's like, honestly, I know that that's not what you meant, but I'm still going to act like you meant it because I'm bad faith. You're just like openly recognizing that you're bad faith. Yeah, says a lot about you that I got duped, I guess. New Israeli Deputy Knesset Speaker calls for killing all Palestinian men in Gaza, wiping out Jenin. Nissim Vaturi, Deputy Speaker of Israel's parliament and a member of Netanyahu's Likud party, told ultra-Orthodox radio station Kol Barama, who was innocent in Gaza? Civilians went out and slaughtered people in cold blood. We need to separate the children and women and kill the adults in Gaza. We are being too considerate. He described the people in Gaza as scum and subhumans, claiming no one in the world wants the civilians in Gaza. Everyone is pushing them into Israel. We will soon turn Jenin into Gaza, he said, adding that the Palestinian captives released under the Gaza ceasefire deal should be sent there so they can be eliminated by Israeli forces. Erase Jenin. Don't start looking for the terrorists. If there's a terrorist in a house, take it out. Jenin is currently under a brutal 35-day Israeli siege with tanks entering the city Monday. Dan Sheehan says, I'll say it again for the 1,000th time. American Zionists will condemn powerless teenagers chanting from the river to the sea on college campuses and then ignore the cartoonishly genocidal statements made day after day by the Israeli government politicians as they're actively also fulfilling those wishes, those genocidal desires. Give me a break. As Mangold spent a lot of time on you today, explains the attack on the idiots. It's fine. Because as Mangold's idiots are not liberal, or they don't try to masquerade their criticism with like liberal seasoning. They just come in here and call me a sand monkey, okay? And I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? That's just more hogs. I like having hogs in here. Half of them also get themselves banned because they come in here and they're so that they're like, you should kill yourself immediately. And then they got site-wide bans. Why is this the first time you've ever shown any compassion towards the baby settlers? If I were to show you a compilation, that's all I wanted to see. If I were to show you a compilation since October 7 of the 700 different instances where I've talked about why I believe in a one-state solution, including in that very same conversation that I was having with Ethan, would you actually go back and say, you know what, I'm wrong? I was wrong. I actually was misguided on this. Or do you think you'll move on to a different goalpost? I don't think you would move on. I think you would just move the goalpost to something else. Meanwhile, the IDF has confirmed it has deployed tanks to the West Bank as it expands its ongoing operation in the Jenin area. The is coming from the IDF in Jenin especially. Okay? That's all I wanted to see. That's not true at all. What do you mean, what's not true at all? Do you think you have a better accounting of all of the things that I've said in my 8 to 10 hours of commentary every single day for the past 16 months than I do? You think you saw one clip that was suspiciously clipped, and you think that you have a better understanding, like the audacity. Can you imagine? Especially because not only am I a public figure, but I'm also endlessly consistent and very careful. No, it's not true that I would move the goalposts. So why the are you moving? Why are you in here because of a clip chimp? And you also are, you had the audacity to say this is the first time you've shown compassion. You idiot. The question I gave you was a rhetorical one. It's because I have shown compassion to all civilians across the board. But you're in here guided by one clip that you saw that was out of context, and you think that's it. Anyway, that's why it's so shocking to people, I guess, when they're like, why is Hasan not banned yet? It must be some grand conspiracy. Or maybe because obviously Twitch has an accounting of all of the things that I have said. No, it must be that it's a grand conspiracy. Lamont Asman banning everyone who disagrees with them right now on stream. I know. For as much people, for as many people yell at me for banning people that you know come in here and disagree with me for simple you know, I think out of all of the content creators who consistently do call outs, okay, I have a fairly open door policy which routinely gets abused by dumbasses. Most people in this community want me to actively ban more people from shit stirring. All right, let's get to the federal employees.
Over the weekend, an extraordinary message from billionaire Elon Musk, a message to every single federal worker, an ultimatum via social media. Reply to an email with 5 things you did last week or else you're out of a job. He set the deadline for midnight tonight. Nancy Cordes is at the White House. We know exactly what she did last week. I can name 5 things off the top of my head. Nancy, good morning.
Thank you so much, Shonia. This mass email is now causing mass confusion. Federal workers at the Defense and State Departments, DHS, Intel are among those at numerous agencies now being told.
Why is it? Look, see, you're doing it. You're doing it right now. That's a huge contention for people in the middle. There is no middle of a dude. You're just saying that you're, you know, you're, if you have a middle of the ground position on a one state currently doing a and also enforcing an apartheid when it's not doing a on a good day it's doing an apartheid, then you're a morally bankrupt individual. Both sides are the same. Do you think that there were both sides? Are you going to tell me that there were both sides in the South African apartheid? Are you going to tell me that, okay, so you, again, it's an apartheid state. Okay, got it. Were there both sides that had reasonable positions in the South African apartheid versus the ANC? Were there both sides in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising? Kilominati, thank you for the raid. Hope you had a good stream. Okay, so you already admit that it's an apartheid. Is there both sides in an apartheid? I think there's a liberation without a tipping the other way. What are you talking about? The that you're claiming could happen is pure fantasy. It's in your mind. What do you mean? A hypothetical could occur. Yeah, guess what, dude? That's precisely what the apartheid state's position was in South Africa. That's precisely what the slavers' position was during Reconstruction in the aftermath of the abolition of slavery as well. What a ridiculous thing to say. You think I haven't heard this before? Well, this hypothetical that might happen is the reason why we have to keep doing an apartheid. Okay. Do you understand the moral bankruptcy? Do you get it now? Sorry, we just got to do a preemptive apartheid. Otherwise, there will be a... What do you think the Nazis were arguing for? What do you think the South African... What do you think the South African apartheid state was arguing for? They were saying, yeah, if we release these black people, they will do to us what we've done to them. If we free the slaves, they will do to us what we've done to them. Hasan, your exact rhetoric right now is what has taken me from a Canadian liberal to a radical, empathetic, and leftist, and having no representation in my government. No, I think Israel is bad. Okay. All right. I guess we're in agreement then. I'm so confused as to what you're saying. Huge contention for people in the middle. What middle is there for an apartheid? It must be abolished. The reason why you're seeing an additional amount of this kind of sentiment being expressed is because people who have masqueraded as pro-Palestinian are flipping, okay? Or they have flipped, but at least now they're doing more overt propaganda. So a lot of people that get their notes from people like that are coming in here to try to argue the same exact stupid positions that I have talked about a million times over, okay? That's it, just so you understand. That's why I'm so pissed off. Not because of the petty crash out of a 45-year-old man with multiple children who he should be taking care of. None of the petty shit matters. What matters is having a relatively progressive audience and then priming them for pro-Israeli positions, or at least antagonistically, getting them to be antagonistic towards pro-Palestinian positions. It's ridiculous. No, you don't understand. Every single person has to defend Palestinian emancipation with the markers that I've set for them. That's it. That to me is completely unacceptable. Anyway, all right, let's get to the federal employees.
To answer it, this whole episode raising new questions about the scope and the limits of Musk's power as a special assistant to the president.
Elon is doing a great job.
After Elon Musk warned it was coming, an email went out to millions of federal workers, directing them to list 5 bullets of what you accomplished last week by midnight tonight. On his social media platform, X, Musk threatened that failure to respond will be taken as a resignation. The ultimatum coming just hours after President Trump urged Musk to get more aggressive as he works to fire thousands of government employees.
We're removing all of the unnecessary, incompetent, and corrupt bureaucrats from the federal workforce.
But even some of the president's allies are taking issue with the approach.
If I could say one thing to Elon Musk, it's like, please put a dose of compassion in this. These are real people. These are real lives.
And while a few agencies urged workers to comply with the email, the FBI, led by Kash Patel, told agents to pause on responding. So did the State Department, led by Marco Rubio, telling staffers that no employee is obligated to report their activities outside of their department chain of command. The Pentagon also opted out just days after the president made major personnel moves there.
What is this? What's your argument back? Okay, what's confusing about the email? If you're doing your job and being productive, then you have nothing to worry about. Brother, what are you talking about? You think this is a perfectly valid thing to do in the middle of the weekend, to be like, hey, sorry, you have until the end of Monday, the workday, to respond to what kind of 5 bullet points, with 5 bullet points, what kind of work you've done in the past month, or else you're fired. Do you not wonder why so many other people, including Trump's own FBI pick, was like, yeah, you don't have to do that. Get the out of here. You can't do that, man. What are you talking about? Thank God there is at least some semblance of labor rules and regulations around that sort of thing. A non-response is not a resignation. What if you didn't see the email? What are you talking about? What if it got buried? What if it was in your spam folder? There's a million different reasons as to why that would be completely unacceptable. Subject to the discretion of the president, they will be given another chance. Failure to respond a second time will result in termination. That's what he said 40 minutes ago. Guy who tweets 138 times a day, by the way. Past week, not month. Okay. Dude, were you on vacation? Guess what? You're cooked. Were you actually working so you didn't see the email? Guess what? You're cooked. That's not how this works. Also, if you personally think that he is going to scour through all of those emails and not just simply use this as a way to just unjustifiably fire a bunch of other employees, not even fire, consider them to have resigned, you're out of your mind. I'll travel for work myself. I overheard a government employee over 6 years talk about the email, how his boss told him to ignore it. Then while on vacation, was then told not to respond to it. Yeah. 3 million federal employees, x 10 minutes of writing, reading equals 50